Good afternoon, everyone. Full-blown European agricultural strike. Farmers across the continent saying no more until policies change. World Economic Forum trying to regain your trust. Also, Wall Street Journal explaining at the meetings they've lost control of the narrative. So what comes next? Disinformation control, meaning censorship. And no better image here than the double-headed eagle. Coat of arms center sums it up. The whole world is beginning to awake to the problems that we're having due to the policies by this unelected body of unified movement of global commerce, finance, and government, otherwise known as the WEF, and their pawns. So right now in Europe, unbeknownst to a lot of people, is a massive strike call going on for farmers to stop delivering into supermarkets, blockade cities, and just siege individual countries. No more food. Eventually, the citizens will start to message to the politicians and political leaders. Stalin called the farmers the enemies of the people by expropriating them, their land, their tools, their machinery. The state took control of food production. Now, 100 years later, the World Economic Forum is opening the war on farmers. Ecocide is what we're going to talk about, but let's take a look in Germany. Play around, find out. That's the PG version. Subsidies to farmers are cut. Heavier taxes imposed, and Germany's providing €7 billion military aid to other nations within Europe, and the farmers are left to rot. This is just the world we're living in. The Germans are the ones you do not want to awaken, but they are now ferocious and angry. Dutch farmers are one thing. German farmers, well, that's quite a different animal, no pun intended. Occupying the entire street, Brandenburger Tor. Now, they think that they can let them protest for 2 or 3 days, blow off some steam, and then it'll go back to normal again. Everybody will just dissipate and go back to their chores of feeding their cows or whatever, tending their animals. I think this time it's a little different. This is in earnest, at least my belief, because I'm in Europe right now. We're in Italy doing some research on star forts and tidal action brought on by 4 gas giants that might have an effect on our coastal waterways and shipping routes here coming up at the end of the year on a global basis. But here's the protests in Germany catching on, as they say. And another thing, energy prices are almost going to double. And this is for Germany again. Consumers who heat with electricity and live in E.ON's supply area, distribution area, are going to have almost double the pricing. Look at that bottom paragraph. German energy company E.ON will double the electric from next month. Now, if you have a heat pump, electric car, and how many farmers are also using electricity, this rolls right back into quite a bit of nonsense going on. Why are people angry? Well, their natural gas is cut. How much extra? Sometimes they're getting up to 10 times the price that they were previously paying at the high periods when gas was very limited due to the pipeline debacle, and people are just angry all around. Economies crashing, and now they're trying to mess with the farmers, and the farmers are like, we're your last line of defense. Gold has soared past $2,000 an ounce. Wars in Israel and the Ukraine. Rate cuts on the table are fueling gold's meteoric rise. Meanwhile, our national debt is skyrocketing higher above $34 trillion. There's a direct correlation to the national debt and the price of gold. Call the proud Americans, the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Mention the Adapt 2030 channel. You're going to get some great in-class service. Also, Patriot Gold Group has a no fee for life IRA where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or silver. No fee for life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Give them a call, 888-546-7020. And now on with the video. And then right on cue, Austrian farmers starting in on the protest also. Why? They're unhappy about excessive bureaucracy and the import of Ukrainian grains and inadequate payment of labor. Do you think so? Gee, that's a copy-paste for pretty much everywhere on the planet. We've run to the wall on everything across this globe. The debt cycle's at its end unless you're in a developing BRICS nation, but otherwise in what you consider the most developed nations on the planet, we're all at this copy-paste, copy-paste, copy-paste. Too many laws, too much bureaucracy. Whatever currency you're using is not buying as much anymore. Inflation's running rampant. And everywhere you look, costs are increased. And then you have to worry about, imports from other nations. That's great on a globalization basis. But when you're flooding markets, that becomes a huge, huge problem. Following behind the Austrians, here come the Swiss farmers. You can see it spreading. No pun intending on spreading like manure or fertilizer. But then the Belgian farmers are getting ready to go on strike also in solidarity with the rest. And here you go. I couldn't believe this. Two sets of variables going on. They are supporting the strikes also across greater Europe, but themselves are also in that group of five that's calling on the EU to stop the dumping of grain from Ukraine into their nation, along with Poland, Slovakia, Hungary. And you know what? The Bulgarian prime minister, this is the prime minister of their nation, compares the farmers to terrorists. I do not negotiate with terrorists, he said, commenting on the farmer protest demands. The farmers' arguments are untenable, meaning unsolvable, impossible to even have a conversation to begin to solve the problem is pretty much where he stands. But to label your own nation just because farmers are trying to protect themselves, that's insane. You need to be fired. Oh, wait, unelected oligarch in the EU. I forgot. Can't do it. How many of them are unelected across the new fiefdom of kings and queens, dukes and earls installed? Elections are meaningless. We will tell you what to do if your serf population agrees to something different. Now we got the Dutch and the French farmers back on it, protesting globalist policies. You can see where it's moving. We've got these giant tax hikes, other fees, increased cost, fuel and animal feed. You can see it happening across Europe. It's going to be happening in America too. It's just a thing sweeping the globe right now. Give it a little time. It's starting to boil in America too. Farmer protests in France are going as expected, dumping tons of farm manure and detritus around in front of all these administrative council buildings, local, regional, and national. And they keep coming back to rising taxes and unfair competition from imported products like dumped grain, dumped sugar, these types of things that are coming from other nations that are far, far, far lower in cost to produce their goods. So the French farmers are going to continue dumping hundreds of trailers worth of manure right on the doorstep. But who's going to clean that up? Do you think the politicians are going to get out there and clean that up? They're just going to order the city sanitation workers to do it. So the message is there. So the farmers' rebellion has spread to the cities of France. Not just one, not just two, but many, 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 along with Germany and Switzerland and Austria and Belgium and Hungary. And you can see it's across the entire continent. Europe is now under siege from the farmers. I wonder how long it'll take before hungry people start to complain to the government. Now we got Romanian farmers and truckers also. See, this thing keeps growing, but every time you look, it's another country that's joining this. Again, it's all about taxes, repayment of loans, increased cost. It's a EU, well, it's actually a global thing. So Romanian truckers and farmers, they've been on and off with the protests, blocking borders and imports of Ukrainian grains, Poland as well. But they're naughty because they don't want to have this whole globalist utopia of kumbaya, you hold my hand, I'll hold yours. Ukrainian grain divide widens. German agricultural minister slammed Poland, Hungary, Slovakia to impose their blockade against Kyiv's cut price grain, dumped grain, incompatible with the EU laws. They're just saying our farmers can't even sell theirs because all this cheap grain that can't be exported through the Black Sea is suddenly making it over the borders, and our farmers can't even sell it because it's so cheap coming in. It's almost free. And then what are our farmers supposed to do here? They had all these input costs from the year. And the paragraph there, he insists that Ukrainian grain is well accepted on the European market. Well, yeah, if you're forced to accept it and it's that dirt cheap. And this is where we get back into it. All these farmers are like, how are we going to repay our loans when you're buying grain and importing it into the nation for sale at the processors for a fraction of what we can sell it for? I mean, these farmers that are in these nations have running costs. Do you think in Poland and Hungary and Slovakia and whatever that they work for free? They don't. They have extremely high taxes for anything used on the nitrogen side. Extremely high taxes for imports of things, especially because of the new, talks of how much damage is being done with farming, with ecocide, etc. So of course they're angry. They can't even repay their loans because this dumped grain coming in at really pennies on the dollar, they can't sell their grains. And now the foreign ministers within countries are saying, well, you guys are terrorists because you can't sell your grain and you're angry about it. Just don't think about it. Just take to Ukraine. We got to keep them, This is the whole circle jerk that's going on inside the EU here. Of course they're angry. They can't pay their bills. What's happening? Oh, and then they come and confiscate the farms. Farm machinery, you see how this works. It's a loop on purpose because if they can't pay, they get foreclosed on. That is the name of the game. They're going to dump Ukrainian grain until these guys go bankrupt, and then they're just going to swoop in on the farms. They'll give them fair value, of course, like they did. Dutch farmers, I think, got 20% over market value for their land, but that land had been in hands for multi-generations. Same thing over here. So what's going to happen with the EU farms? They're shutting down, and they're going to start not delivering to the supermarkets. Now, how long will it take is the question before political action swings and the average person that, quote unquote, voted those politicians in, because, in the EU, at the very top levels, there's no way, they're just appointed. It really is the new kings and queens, like we saw the serfdom movement in the 1400s. You just had the kings and queens. They told everybody else what to do. And it would not be surprising me if we open the dungeons back up again shortly. And riding on top of this, you think the farmers don't understand this? The EU members strike an industrial emissions deal. Now the deal to reduce industrial emissions would not create further red tape for industry or farmers. But then the very next paragraph, well, it still has yet to be ratified. Okay. Rules on landfills, emissions for mining and minerals, but still they didn't ratify it to its full final state. Who else knows what can be thrown in there, changed, omitted, added to, or the riders on top of those bills like we do in America? Budget, they'll throw anything at the kitchen sink on the budget bill because it has to get passed. And then the very last paragraph there, large poultry and pig farms face restrictions on emissions like methane that could cause problems such as asthma, bronchitis, etc. They say everything hunky-dory in EU land. Kumbaya, it's a utopia. Oh wait, chicken meat would triple in price to the consumer with the review of animal welfare regulations proposed by the EU. The Farmers and Livestock Organization are taking a deep look into the economic impacts of this new regulatory Charlie Foxtrot that the EU's slamming on top of poultry producers. Now, you just saw previously that they're trying to push down on pork. Well, now they're trying to kick it down on eggs and chicken. And even rabbits. They're targeting rabbits now, too. The rabbit sector would have to make an outlay of just incredible amounts of investment that they don't have. They are not going to take on these loans, and it's not going to be possible on many farms. So what happens again? Slowly, this is like a boa constrictor coming in and squeezing the farmers until they sell their land. And then what happens? The consolidation of land into a few hands, and they will decide who gets the food and how much it costs, or total percentage of your wages. And now we have Joe coming in, the founder of Stop Ecocide at the World Economic Forum, declaring that farming and fishing are ecocide. You have to watch this speech from her describing it. It is the fakest posh accent. It's overdone. You need to listen to it because it's so fake. The way you go side. Co-founder telling the panel we need to stop farming. We need to stop fishing. You see where it's all going. But when we map it out, in addition to all that with the farmers, here's the mapping of the EU deindustrialization. You knew with BASF when they started closing back in the day, that was the first one domino to fall. Largest chemical company in Europe closing. That chemical plant didn't close for over 100 years. And here they are closing parts of the plant down. That was a couple years back. Now take a look where the deindustrialization is happening. We've got the Netherlands, the UK, Belgium, France, Spain, Italy, Turkey, Croatia, Bulgaria, Serbia, Hungary, Austria, Romania, Lithuania, Poland, Germany, Norway, and Finland. No place is spared. And I'll let you read into the list. You can pause the screen, but I mean, this is a massive amount of closures. If this much closure would happen in the United States, there would be calls across all states to, whoa. We have a huge economic problem. Like, you can't remove that many jobs and send them overseas. That would be a huge political talking point for years if you close that many plants that quickly. So here's where the rubber meets the road on this. So all these WEF meetings are going on at the same time all these protests on farming are kicking off. And the editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal admits that legacy media no longer owns the facts or controls the news, basically. And people like you and me are going to reach out and look for different sources of information. And they're also going to question the quote-unquote mainstream media about their facts and what the truth truly is. And I love how she's so forthcoming. We are the gatekeepers, and we very much own the facts as well, but not now because of independent media. And you know what? Secretary Guterres calls for global governance, a new multipolar global order, as in New World Order. I heard a couple of speeches there. You can find them online. They actually use the word New World Order, but they call it multilateralism, and they hope that the jungle won't grow back in. We're one reserve currency. And then WEF and all their speeches, if you question the experts on something and you just don't blindly believe it, you're more dangerous than a terrorist. And these are the kind of speeches coming out of the WEF meetings. And then the top concern for them rides right on top of what was discussed at the Wall Street Journal: misinformation, disinformation. They need to control it. The polarization, yeah, people are getting split like this, incorrect what you're giving us. So they need to control it. And what they're going to do over these next 2 years is label everything that is not an approved narrative as disinformation, misinformation, and try to pressure advertisers to remove their ads from video platforms and websites, etc., to try to pressure these social media sites to then cancel or remove those sites or those feeds from their platform so you can't see it. Just say no. Didn't we hear that in the 1980s? This is your brain on drugs. Just say no. Well, let's just say no to globalist agendas. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.